Do you remember just a year ago when there was only one person who had more than $100 billion and it was crazy? Well, there are 4 now. I mean, let's call it 6 because the other 2 will probably get there in a couple of weeks. And this is after a year where the whole world pretty much burned down. How did this happen? And why didn't they give away more?
3 comas.
When I was growing up, Bill Gates was the richest man in the world. He was pretty much the top guy from the mid-90s until 2018 when Jeff Bezos dethroned him. And in my mind, he was so far away from anyone else. He was the only guy with dozens of billions, miles away from the single-digit folks. In fact, in 1999, thanks to the dot-com bubble, he came very close to break the 100 billion barrier. Or he did, depending on which data you look at. Which is mind-blowing, considering that adjusted for inflation, that would be $157 billion today. Which would rank him at... still number 4 actually. Interesting. But of course the dot-com bubble popped, and after the 2008 financial crisis, his fortune was less than half what it was just 9 years before. Those were the Windows Vista's years. Bill Gates is now merely part of the 100 billion club. Still a very small club, but he's not on his own anymore. And it looks like that club loved 2020. Comedian Tim Dillon has a good take on it.
They love the pandemic. I mean, they're gushing. One guy goes, there's going to be a pandemic now every 5 years. It's just the way the world is now. It's just the way the world is. Everyone's going to have to wear masks forever. We were sharing way too many germs before. Everybody, stay in your house, stay online, and use our app. Use our app. The world is now different. And all the things that can make the world livable, coincidentally, are all the things we've invested in.
Before we go any further, I wanted to put things into perspective. Here's a little mental trick to try to even grasp what a billion is. Okay, ready? 1 million seconds is 11 and a half days. But 1 billion seconds is 31 years. Yeah, go ahead, Google it. Also, maybe hit the like button and subscribe. It's only $5.99 a month. Nah, I'm kidding, it's free. So this is the Forbes list from just 12 months ago, with Bezos at 113 billion and Bill Gates at $98 billion. Bernard Arnault next one in pursuit, but still 24 billion short of being in the club. Again, remember this is less than a year ago. So let's have a look at who did what since. And let's start with the biggest of them all, Elon Musk. So looking at last year's list, which was just when things started to... Yes, you have to scroll all the way down to number 31 to find him with a measly $24.6 billion. Pfft. He's now at $173.3 billion. That's an increase of 600%, or $149 billion. Although he's not right now, he did become the richest man in the world back in January, and he stayed at the top for a little while. Of course, the man who dethroned him was none other than Jeff Bezos. He registered the 3rd biggest increase by adding $67 billion to his net worth, or a 60% increase. So who's the 2nd biggest, you're asking? And that's Bernard Arnault, the richest man in France and currently 3rd richest person in the world. He went from 76 billion to a whopping $160 billion. That's an increase of $84 billion or 111%. Bill Gates, as we talked about earlier, went from $98 billion last year to a current $126 billion. A modest increase of just $28 billion or 29%. Moving on to the 2 who are really knocking at the door, Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, went from 67.5 billion to 97.2 billion. Come on, Warren, you're almost there. I believe in you. Maybe start a Kickstarter campaign to get over the edge. And the final one is Mark Zuckerberg, probably the least liked of the bunch here. He went from 54 billion to 99.9 billion as of today, nearly doubling his money. So close, but he's not in a club yet, and we all know how much he loves to be in clubs.
I need to do something substantial in order to get the attention of the clubs.
So it's no surprise that 4 out of 6 are tech people. In a year where we all had to stay inside all over the world, things turned virtual and digital. And of course, all of these people's wealth are tied to the stock price of their respectful companies. More on that later. And some of them make sense, but some really don't. Amazon made a killing, of course. It was pretty much the perfect business model to thrive in the glorious year of 2020. People ordered everything on Amazon because shops were closed. They apparently hired 500,000 people to meet the demand, and the conditions in which they worked in is another story. As for Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, well, people used their computers and went on social media more, which led to more advertising spent on Facebook and people buying more computers and Microsoft products that came with them. Speaking of computers, Michael Dell doubled his fortune in the past year. So tech was obviously the big winner last year. As a matter of fact, FAANG alone was responsible for 60% of the entire SAP return in 2020, which is mildly terrifying. For Warren Buffett, the oldest of them all actually by some margin, it was indeed a very busy year on the stock market, and he obviously did very good for himself. We had the most dramatic recovery from a bear market, or let's call it a collapse, in late March 2020 to a huge bull market and surge in the following months. As he puts it, you must be bold when others are fearful and fearful when others are bold. I'm guessing he was very bold in late March then. Bernard Arnault is the owner of LVMH, which is a luxury group. LV stands for Louis Vuitton. They make bags, you probably heard of them. And MH stands for Moet Hennessy, which is champagne. But the group also owns tons of other brands like Belvedere, Dior, or Tagwire. So in a world where millions of people lost their job or were furloughed, it shows that it really didn't affect the upper class because they kept buying luxury products. Of course, it still hit the numbers, but it was offset by China, an absolutely booming market for luxury goods, with millions of people being lifted out of poverty every day, and also because China wasn't hit that bad last year, ironically. For the whole of 2020, LVMH's revenue soared to $54 billion. That leaves us with Elon Musk. Sure, Tesla is a tech company, but it's mainly a car company, and the automotive industry took a massive hit last year. Mostly from people not really needing a new car because they couldn't go anywhere, obviously, but also now because of the worldwide chip shortage that's hitting their production line. Tesla sold some cars, sure, they delivered just under 500,000 cars. But by comparison, Ford and Toyota respectively shipped 4.2 and 2.1 million cars. Tesla even made more money with a single Bitcoin stunt than they did for the entire past year. You see, Elon Musk's entire wealth boom was tied to the Tesla share price, which basically added a zero to its price. And this is the issue here. The stock market has completely departed from reality, mostly because the stock market always looks at the near future. But it even feels more disconnected when the global economy is doing so bad and the global debt is at an all-time record. The Tesla stock skyrocketed because people liked the stock. But they also saw the company as not only the electric car leader, but also miles ahead of its competitors. There was a rumor last year that Tesla was going to announce a 1 million mile battery. That's 1 million mile over its lifetime, not over one charge, at its Battery Day event in September. That didn't happen, but they did announce a new type of cell, a fatter, better, and cheaper one. So that was a big deal too, but anyone who isn't an engineer was underwhelmed, so the stock corrected, but then it exploded towards the end of the year. To put things into perspective, the stock's current P/E ratio, which is the price to earnings ratio, is over 1100. In comparison, Apple, which many consider an expensive stock, has a P/E ratio of just 33. Okay, enough about the stock, but it's relevant for this part. People are pissed that these guys are not giving away more to charity, considering how much their wealth exploded. At a time where it doesn't look too good to be a billionaire, especially a tech one, you'd think they would have given away a few billions each. But instead, they only gave away a few millions. For example, Jeff Bezos gave $150 million, which sounds like a lot, or maybe not, but it's just 0.26% of his profits last year. Mark Zuckerberg, through his foundation, gave $104 million, or 0.36% of his profits. How much did Elon Musk give? $5 million, or 0.004% of his gains. Most people don't know this, but Elon Musk takes out loans, which sounds insane, but that's because he's really poor in cash. He's not liquid. Almost his entire worth is in the 20% controlling stake he has in Tesla. So to finance his lifestyle and business investment, he needs to take out loans. Massive ones at cheap rates, of course, because the collateral are his shares in Tesla. But otherwise, he gets no salary. He's only awarded stock options if the company passes certain milestones, one of which is market value over a certain period of time, which sounds really fishy to me. Surely it should be based on amount of cars sold or just earnings. But no, that one is based on appearances, apparently. So billionaires can give away billions just like that, because that would mean they would lose control of their companies. And they can't. They don't want, really. And I'm guessing taking out loans just to give to charity is not tax efficient, so they don't do that either. And we all know they're not the best at paying their taxes.
I declare...
Because that's really the only way that it could be redistributed. And that would mean it would have to go through the hands of the government, and that's not super great either. Well, on that super down note, I hope you still enjoyed the video, so please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. It's free. See ya!